I landed from my hen party in Ibiza, just in time to organise our global work summer conference for 300 people. And in 2 days' time, I fly to Italy to get married. So unfortunately, saying no to things has never been my strong point. And with about 6 hours last week, I had to think, right, how do I write a RECex talk and get the slides across to Stephen before he kills me? So I came up with 2 topics which a week ago seemed foolproof. Recruitment, obviously, and football. So apologies in advance, but it was either kind of roll with this or give you my wedding speech. So dearly beloved. No. What I'm going to talk about is the most overused phrase in business jargon, which is culture eats strategy for breakfast. And there are a lot of overused phrases in business jargon, so it's a meaty category to compete in. But what does it mean? The phrase was coined by a guy called Peter Drucker in a business book written years ago, which most people haven't even read because it's quite boring. But the phrase stuck. And, you know, is culture important? Yes, of course it is. Is a robust strategy without a good culture to back it up and help execute difficult? Yes. But in a fight, would culture eat strategy for breakfast? Fuck no. And I'm not just saying that as an exploit strategist. But for me, your culture is absolutely part of your strategy, a critical part, but part of it. Your vision is your why. Why are you here? What does your business do? Why do you deserve to compete on the stage against your competitors? Your strategy is your how. And this needs to change every 3 to 5 years because markets change, your customer needs change, your competitors change, technology changes. And then your culture is your now, your execution. How are you making sure that the people in your organisation are bought into your strategy in order that it might be executed, in order that you might hit your vision? Okay. So if you cannot muster any enthusiasm for any more talk about football, I'm sorry, but it will be over in 5 minutes. And if you can't muster any enthusiasm for recruitment, then it's going to be a really long day for you. So it didn't come home, unless your home happens to be an exquisite French chateau. But it was different this year. It felt different. And why was that? Not only did we have an inexperienced manager in Gareth Southgate, but we also had an inexperienced team. And not just an inexperienced team, the most inexperienced team in the tournament. The youngest average age and the fewest average caps per player. But for so many years, English football has tried to survive on culture alone. That sense of Britishness, that sort of, it's our sport, we invented it, only good things can happen to us, and if we just turn up every time, we're not the most skillful, but we'll try the hardest and we want it the most. But the reality is, other teams want to win the World Cup too. And they are more skillful, and they do have a strategy. And actually having a more inexperienced manager and having a more inexperienced team meant that if they were going to fulfill their vision, which is to win the World Cup, then he had to have a strategy. So what was this strategy? Technical, tactical, psychological, and of course, cultural. He used the team he had. He made inexperience into a strength, not a weakness, by playing only 3 at the back, having attacking wingers, getting them playing exciting football. In some of those games, we were actually playing football, scoring goals. We had the biggest scoring game in a World Cup match against Panama. We won the Golden Boot. England don't get those accolades in football, even when we're doing well. Tactically, he went and took advice from lots of different sports. He travelled the globe, seeing what tactics he could learn that he could apply to his strategy. Went to watch the Super Bowl. American football is one of the sports known to be best at set pieces. And he talked to the coaches, and he had his players with their eyes closed, sitting in the dressing room, practicing set pieces, so they got to know them just by the sound of each other's voices. And the result? 9 goals from set pieces, the biggest since the record, which was, you guessed it, in 1966, the most goals scored from set pieces by England. He went to watch the NBA, talked to basketball coaches about how in a court that is so small, with a game that is so fast, you can man-mark your player without fouling. Why? Because of video assistance referees. You couldn't get away with fouling anymore. You had to keep it clean. And what was the result? We had one of the cleanest runs in the competition, 6 yellow cards in 6 games. The only teams that got less than us got knocked out in the group stages. And psychologically, he went to speak to long-distance runners. He spoke to Ranulph Fiennes, the famous explorer, about how when your physical strength is gone, you maintain your mental strength. Because he knew from his own experience that a lot of the winning was a mentality and a mindset. And this showed in the penalties. He had them practicing penalties from March. He'd make them practice penalties at the end of every training session, because that's how tired they would have been when they had to take penalties if it came to that. And most importantly, he psychologically profiled his players to see who was the most mentally robust to take the penalties. Because think about it. You know, we're so used to whoever is the most used to scoring goals getting up. It's the strikers, then the wingers, then the midfielders, then the defenders if they're needed. But these are the 11 best football players in the country. Even a goalkeeper can kick a ball into a net from 12 yards away. It's the mental strength that is needed to score a goal under those conditions. And so did we win? No, we didn't. We weren't good enough. But the culture that he brought back was the most important thing, and that was part of the strategy. For years now, the culture got so bad that players were doing anything they could to avoid getting called up to play for their country. You know, big superstars, your Beckhams, your Rooneys, your Gerrards, who would make more money staying at home with their Instagram fans than playing for their country, who knew that all that would happen if they went and did it was abuse from the media and the public. So we took the external pressures right off. You might have been forgiven for not even realising it was a World Cup year this year before it started. No interviews, no tabloids, no big news in the press about them landing in Baden-Baden with their wags. You know, not that much about the strategy, no flags up everywhere. This was part of the strategy because he wanted to take the external pressures off and put them on where they mattered, on the pitch and in the dressing room, and make them proud to play for their country again. And he took a tactic from one of the best sports teams in the world, the All Blacks. Every time one of the new players stepped out onto the field to play for their country for the first time, he had an old England legend come into the dressing room in front of everyone and present them with their match jersey. And even though we didn't win, that culture, that English culture of football came back on its own. People were making friends in pubs. Within 24 hours of the heartbreak, I was already getting texts about buying tickets to Euro 2020. At some point, the sarcastic "it's coming home" memes became real. And it's that culture that will take us into the next phase. So what has all this got to do with recruitment? Nothing. I just can't let go of the dream. But if you look around you, there'll probably be competitors sitting in this auditorium. Competitors to your company. There's so many different companies out here. There's tech companies, service companies, product companies, public and private sector. But somewhere in the audience, there'll be someone that you compete with on a daily basis. And you know that to beat them, you have to have a robust product strategy, a robust customer strategy. You have to be obsessed with your customer brand, customer experience, customer retention. But let's look at it a different way. Just Put your hand up if your company hires people. Every single person in this auditorium is your direct competitor. And yet, the emphasis we place on our talent strategy is nowhere near the emphasis that we place on our customer strategy. And so culture has become this buzzword in the last few years about keeping our staff happy. And it's this idea of a ubiquitous sense of what a good culture is. It's well-being and work-life balance and millennials and flexible working. And people are becoming obsessed with it, and it's because it's at the expense of having a robust talent strategy. So we look at recruitment a little bit differently. You need to obsess about your people strategy in the same way that you would obsess about your customer strategy. Because recruitment starts from before someone has ever even heard about your company to long after they've left it. And this is the bit where I need to be careful because I've been given strict instructions that I am not allowed to sell anything on stage. But I'm pretty sure there's no restrictions on you guys to buy, so it's fine. Recruitment doesn't start at the point where you're interviewing a candidate. And culture is not a standalone objective. So when we work with our clients, we think about the entire talent life cycle, from talent attraction, recruitment, performance, retention, and succession. And rather than jumping to the conclusions that it's about your culture or about your recruitment, rather than just putting another person into another seat to fill another gap, actually thinking about where does your strategy need to focus. And if this table looks way too busy to be on a slide, it's because it is. There are so many things to think about. Within attraction, do you have a strong employer brand? It's not the same as your customer brand. Are the right people applying? Are enough people applying? Are a diverse set of people applying to your business? And if not, why not? Are you even getting the chance to see these people? At the recruitment stage, are your processes right? Are you hiring the right people? Is everyone having a consistent experience? Even if you don't want to hire them, are they leaving as an advocate? Performance. Once you've got people into your company, how are you training them? How are you inducting them? How are you getting them up and running? Do you actually need to hire 3 more people? Or could your current staff base be doing 10%, 20% more? Retention. This is where culture sits, a lot of it. How are you keeping people? Are you keeping the right people? I see a lot of phones going on. Step aside. Are you getting strong staff engagement? And succession planning. Are you exiting people in the right way? When they leave, are they saying good things about you? Are you developing future leaders so that you can fill the skills gaps that are appearing as people leave? Culture eats strategy for breakfast is a leadership cop-out. Because your culture should feed off your strategy and not your customer strategy, your talent strategy. Thank you.